having me, and also thank Distributed Global for hosting us tonight. It's pretty cool. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think the intro was pretty accurate. Oops. The intro was pretty accurate. I do think, and I'm coming from the web, I'm not coming from crypto, I'm not coming from finance, I've been working in the web for like 20 years. And I'm deeply convinced that the fact that we've been using ads forever, basically to monetize everything, is informed and is starting to show not only its limits, but threatening a lot of things around us at this point. And so Unlock is really trying to build a new business model for the web, a new way to pay for the stuff that we care about, that is both easy and convenient, as well as profitable enough for people to actually keep creating content. I work with other people. So basically, I do think that we're reaching the end of the ad-supported web. So that web that we've all known for the last 4 years is reaching its end for a bunch of reasons. The first one is the emergence, or at this point, dominance of ad blockers. If you use any iOS device at this point, or macOS device, Safari itself could be considered as an ad blocker because it removes cookies after a short period of time. That is also true for a lot of other browsers and extensions that we all use that are making it harder and harder for people to monetize with ads. Another trend that actually is very significant and close to my heart, because I'm French, privacy laws are actually emerging and making it harder and harder for people to track, but also put ads that would be efficient because they know which person is viewing specific ads. You've probably heard of GDPR in Europe. That's actually a law that is going to be very similar to what we're going to have in the US in the next couple, or at least in some states, in the next couple of weeks at this point. Another trend, which is maybe the biggest one of all and the least visible, is the market dynamics. At this point, you probably know of Google and Facebook. They control about 95% of the growth of the ad ecosystem, of the ad market, which means that they're already controlling more than half of it altogether. So basically, these two companies are completely locking down the market of ads and the market of traffic. If you think about anybody creating content, you get your content, your visitors, either from search or from social. And so these two platforms control most of the ad on one side and most of the traffic on the other side. That makes it really, really hard for anyone else to actually make a living through ads. And so that's roughly the end of the ad-supported web. The good news is that we're starting to see the emergence of a ton of subscriptions. And a couple days ago, Alex Volkin from CoinFund actually tweeted something about the pain that is to go online at this point and see all of these subscriptions on every single website. And basically, we're starting to see membership on every website that we care about, right? So this little slideshow shows them all, but if you think about like Quartz, New York Times, Washington Post, the Business Insider, TechCrunch, every single publication out there is moving towards subscriptions. The challenge, obviously, is that, I mean, it's good for them because it's a way to have predictable revenue from the people that consume their content, so it's a much direct, much more aligned business. However, for consumers, it's also extremely hard to go through this because that means that for every single website, for every single page that you click on, you'll have to register, create an account with your email, password, and then pay for that content. And if you add up all of the money that you're spending for all of these subscriptions, that becomes quickly something that cannot scale, even though it should be something that you can, even if you want to pay, it's actually a lot more than what you can actually do. And the mental friction of making the decision to pay for each of these pieces of content makes it really, really unbearable. And I'm sure there's even more example than here. Basically, what Unlock is trying to do is to tokenize memberships. And so all of these paywalls, all of these websites that charge you for content are a membership. They're providing a system where only the paying members, only the members can actually access some content. If you think about that pattern, that actually applies to a lot more than just content. We're obviously familiar with the paywalls, we discussed this. If you think about Netflix, it's the same idea. You can only watch the movies if you have a valid subscription, a valid membership to their system. Spotify is the same with music. You can only access or listen to music if you have a valid membership to this thing. That also applies to software. A lot of the software that we use these days, whether on the web through a freemium system, gives you access to more features, more content, more application. If you pay for these, and if you don't, then you are locked. You're kept outside of some of these things. If you use mobile apps, it's actually also the same pattern. A lot of the apps that we use on a daily basis have what we call in-app purchases, basically to unlock the next level in the game, the next feature inside of an application. And that model of unlocking a membership is something that we find all around the web, but also mobile devices and all around the world at this point. here. So what unlock does is basically to take this pattern that we see all over the place, which is unlocking something, and put this inside of the blockchain. Kind of like a weird approach to this, but it's the idea that by having the same model, the same object, the same class, if you think, of object to represent membership all across the web, we can actually make a lot more interesting things beyond this. And if we were to build this kind of shared abstraction of what a membership is, we could put that on somebody's database and say, hey, I'm going to be the person in charge of all of this membership. But it's unlikely to take off because nobody would trust us. Like, these memberships become extremely strategic and critical for the companies that use this to monetize their content. By putting this on a blockchain, we put this basically in a neutral territory in some way. It's like not something that a company owns. It's not something that a tech platform could eventually kind of lock or decide to remove from the people that are using that. Sorry, remove from the wallets that people are using it. But at the same time, putting it on blockchain allows both the creators to act with it and the consumers to actually leverage this as well and use this for APIs and other things. And so that's really what Unlock is, basically. It's a system that basically allows creators to deploy their locks and sell keys, which are tokens, to the consumers that are interested in unlocking content, features, etc., etc. Does it make sense? So far, so good? So rather than actually go much further into the presentation, I think I want to do a demo. Who here has a crypto wallet on their phone, a Web3 wallet? So examples are MetaMask on their phone, Opera, Trust is a good one. So I would invite you to pull your phones, and you will soon become members of the thing. So maybe to get started, I'll invite you to our blog. So unlock-protocol.com/blog. Please open that on your crypto wallet on your phones, if you have this today. And the QR code is a way to avoid typing that URL. All right. So once you're there, you'll see that basically it looks like a fairly regular blog. Has a bunch of stories. What we've done, what we decided is rather than actually lock the content of the blog, we've locked the feature. And the feature that we've locked mostly is the ability to read or leave comments. We do think that comments are a big part of the web, are a big part of the social web. At the same time, too often they're being, say, polluted by people that are here just to troll other people. And so by limiting this and providing this only to the paid member, we believe that it's a way to only allow people that really care about something to post and publish about this. You'll also see at the bottom of the blog a little bar that says, hey, you're really not a member yet. And basically that bar is identifying your status between a member or a non-member. I'll invite you to click on that black bar at the bottom for those who have a phone. And I see a few people actually have their phones, so feel free to show around to the people around you, right? And so when you click on that bar, your crypto wallet will pop up and ask you to send 0 ETH. The membership that we decided to put on our blog is basically a free one. Anybody can become a member, you just pay for gas. And so if you confirm that transaction, you will then immediately be given access to the comments on each of the stories. Does that make sense? Once you've done this, not only will we give you immediate access, but eventually when the transaction goes through, when it is mined, you will receive an NFT, a non-fungible token that will sit in your wallet and allow you to access that content. I know when we set that up, set the Rabbithole with the CoinFund team, I told them, hey, why don't we actually do tickets with Unlock as well? And so a lot of you actually purchased their ticket RSVP by purchasing an NFT, an access key to the venue. We didn't check at the gate, but I've actually done a couple of demos here. On that NFT, there's a QR code, which actually shows whether that key is valid. And if we had a bouncer, we could have put somebody at the door that checked all of the QR code, and it would have only left the people with a valid key inside. Everybody else would have been left outside. That make sense? So that's the first demo. Any question about this? No? All right, let's move on, because I think it's going to get more fun. Obviously, that's just that demo. I asked who has a crypto wallet, and that means that it's only for the people that have crypto wallets. In that room, that's a pretty high proportion, but if in the real world, that's actually almost no one. What Unlock introduced a couple of weeks ago is the idea of user accounts, and I'm actually going to do the demo myself on my laptop. But this time, it's a way for people that have no crypto wallet to unlock the content, even though it's locked using cryptocurrencies. So for that demo, I'm going to go to my personal blog, and I'm going to go to my personal blog using Safari. And for anyone who's used crypto before, you probably know that Safari doesn't have crypto wallets in there. There's no way to actually expose your MetaMask or your Ethereum address in there. And so on my blog, I've created a member section, my personal blog, a member section, where I basically give access to nothing really interesting, but it's to do a lot of demos. And I put 2 different locks on that page. The first lock I've decided to charge 0.01 ETH, which is roughly 175 at this point, for 5 minutes of access. And I've also put a second lock on that same site, which is 1 DAI. You probably know that 1 DAI is $1. It's a stable coin. And that gives access to people for 5 minutes as well. What's interesting about this is that Unlock allows creators to decide their price, but also decide of their currency. Here, I've decided of both, but I could have picked any ERC20. I could have decided to charge, say, 2 BATs. It's not a lot of money, but 2 BATs. Or I could have decided to charge, if I had my own crypto project with my own token, I could have decided to charge with my own personal token for this. That would have been harder for users because they would have to find the token before actually being able to purchase access, but that's a way to leave control to the creators. Here, as I said, we're using Safari, which doesn't have a crypto wallet. And obviously, if the user doesn't have a crypto wallet, they don't have ETH, which is why we show insufficient fund here. However, we assume that 1 DAI is $1, and we say, oh, well, the user probably has $1. If they have a credit card, they do have $1. And so that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to log in with Unlock, and I've created previously, before the demo, I've created an account, like you would do with any other web service, email, password. And I'm just going to log in with my account. Here you can see that's my email, and you'll see that my password is here. And immediately after I logged in, basically you see that I'm being asked to confirm my purchase. And I had to confirm my purchase through my credit card. I've got a Visa card that's ending in 3268. Do not write that down. And basically now I'm basically going to pay for that thing. So you see that it's actually a lot more than 1 DAI. We're charging $1.85. And the reason for this is because we turn that 1 DAI into $1. We also apply credit card fees, which we have to pay because that's actually going to be a credit card payment. And we also apply an unlock fee that we take that's mostly going to be used to pay for gas. And I'm going to hit confirm purchase here. And you see that the transaction has been now submitted. And there's 2 steps that are happening. The first step is to charge my card. That's actually happening on the Unlock backend. And the second step is Unlock sending a meta transaction, a transaction on behalf of the user to say, hey, let's purchase a key for that user. So my blog has been paid 1 DAI, and that user is me in that case, has received an NFT and now has access to the content. I can actually continue reading the thing, and you see that there's a more complete version of that page. Go ahead.
Is that a plugin, or how does this flow work?
It's a small JavaScript snippet of code that I put on my page myself.
Okay. Can anyone put it on their page, or how do you see rolling that out?
Everyone can put that on their pages. Basically, it's JavaScript. And the goal is to eventually provide it kind of as a self-serve approach where you can come and you deploy your own lock, and then you put that on your pages as easily as just you would put kind of any kind of JavaScript code on the page. Make sense? So just to sum up here, as a Safari user, I am not a crypto user. I don't care about crypto. I don't have a crypto wallet. I don't have ETH. I don't have gas. I don't have any of these things. And yet, I'm able to purchase my first NFT. I'm actually becoming a crypto user with that kind of instantly. I'm not going to go beyond my script here because I think it's a dangerous thing to do in a demo, but if I was crazy, I would show you that in Etherscan, you can actually see the transaction happening, and you can see that that NFT has been minted and has been assigned to my address using Unlock. Make sense? Cool. Let's go back to the demo, to the script. If you remember, one of the broken things about the current models with subscription is, is the idea that you have to create accounts on every single website, right? With Unlock, your wallet, if you're a crypto user, is your identity. You don't have to put an email and password on every single website. You just say, hey, here's my key, give me access. Or I don't have a key yet, let me purchase a key and then give me access. I don't have to sign up, I don't have to remember my password, I don't have to do it again on my phone, I don't have to kind of go through all that friction. It's my wallet, my account is my wallet. Same with what we call hosted accounts. You only have one account to unlock, and then you can unlock all of the content on any website. It's actually exactly the same thing. What matters is, like, if you don't have an account, you can actually prove to the creator, to the website, that you have a token. You say, hey, this is my address. I sign, which is exactly the thing that you would have done if you showed me your QR code at the gate. You sign something that proves that you actually have a valid token, and then I'll give you access because I know that you paid for that token one way or another. So I'm not going to ask you for your name. I'm not going to ask you for your date of birth, for the name of your third kid, whatever. I don't care about any of this private information. I just want proof that you've paid. And if you have the token, it's a proof that you've paid, then I'll give you access. Make sense? So let's for those who actually went and created an account, let's go for create an account for purchase a key to our blog. Let's go further in the demo. Can you go to that URL, which is basically app.unlock-protocol.com/keychain. And so you'll see that on that keychain, it really is another version of your wallet in somewhere where it only lists the keys that you've purchased, only lists your subscription. So in that case, you'll probably see the blog, the one that you've just done. Might also see the ticket for tonight's event, because that's also a key that you unlocked previously to come here see us. But down the line, a year, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 10 years from now, you'll see your Netflix subscription. You might see a few apps that you've purchased in there as well. You might see your New York Times subscription. You might see a subscription to somebody's blog. All of these things in one single place, rather than kind of go through your credit card statement at the end of the month to see who charged you how much for different things. You have one place where you can see all of these subscriptions. And that's a pretty big and significant progress from a place where it's like, oh, I have to remember all of my passwords and remember all of my subscriptions, to a place where it's like, I got now this keychain, this place where I can see all of my subscriptions. All right? One of the cool things about that keychain is like all of these keys are actually non-fungible tokens, which means that you can do unique things that you would be able to do with any non-fungible token, including, for example, the ability to transfer them. Cool. Another cool thing that you can do with the keys themselves, like you can reuse them. So I mentioned earlier, you came here, you purchased your ticket on the smart contract, and you have a key that shows that you're a member of CoinFund's Rabbithole, right? What's interesting about that key is that, yes, it's a ticket to come here, but if Olga decides to create a website where she puts kind of the video of tonight's talk, she could lock the video so that only the people that have a valid key for the event could actually view that content. And so that key now is kind of reusable. You can you can apply it to one single thing, but you can apply it to many different things. At Unlock, we decided to put a lock on our blog, as I've told you before, but we've also reused that lock in different places. For example, we built a dashboard using Scout, which is pretty, some of you might have heard of it. It's kind of an analytics company on blockchain. And that dashboard is only available for our members. It's the same key. So if you're a member to our blog, you can actually access the Scout dashboard. Another way to kind of reuse the locks is you can say, hey, I actually really like the people that go to this event. I'm going to put that same lock on my own site. I'm not affiliated with CoinFund, but if I put the same lock on my site, now I'm basically automatically giving access to the people that went to the event to my content. And it's kind of a very useful marketing scheme in some ways. Like you say, hey, I really like the listeners or the fans of this band. I'm going to give them access for free to my content because I think they would be interested in that content. It's actually a very interesting way to kind of reuse the content. The lock is public, so if I put the address of that lock on my site, then all of the people that have a key to that lock will be able to come to me. At some point, I can also say, hey, it's good, I'm giving access for free to these people, but what if I actually went back to the creator of the lock and say, hey, let's share the revenue, because I'm pretty sure people pay for your stuff also to come see my stuff. And so this way now we've created a bundle. We created an approach where people pay for one key, but unlock different pieces of content across the web, or different platforms across the web. Does that make sense? A couple of years ago, actually a couple of months ago, I was at the New York Times, and they created a bundle with Spotify. And basically every night, they have to sync the two databases between the New York Times subscribers and the Spotify accounts, and give access for free to the Spotify accounts to people that were New York Times subscribers. That was a nightmare. That was kind of impossible to scale and created a bunch of issues. However, with the lock, it actually is very trivial. Both sites put the same lock on their sites. If a user has a key to the lock, they'll be able to access both sites without really having to do anything beyond this. And then they could decide how they split the revenue. All the revenue goes to the lock, and then they could say, hey, one side gets 2/3 of the revenue, the other side gets 1/3 of the revenue. They could also do something even crazier, where they set basically, rather than have one party own the lock, they could have a multisig or even a DAO own the lock, and then decide how the revenue is being split based on like rules that would be decided otherwise. Go ahead.
Could you have like almost like a prepaid lock where it kind of pays down so it can travel around a lot of different sites?
I'm not sure what you mean by prepaid lock. But
Say if I put $10 onto a lock, right, and therefore there are 5 sites that took that lock,
yeah.
and then I spent more time on one, so I spent half time on one versus
Yeah, that would be kind of the video example where so we don't keep track of like how much time you spend on the site, but that revenue split could actually be done via other information, like the amount of time that you spend on each of these websites. That would have to be kind of submitted to the chain via oracles or some system. But yes, that's literally one of the things that is available is like all the money goes to a DAO that decides how the revenue is split based on different criteria, which is like how much time you spend on the site or how much of, actions you've done on a given site or things like this. Go ahead.
Maybe a little controversial based on an underlying philosophy, but just want to throw it out there.
Sure.
Effectively, what you're saying is that the system builds in a unique identifier onto the wallet. You can use that as your membership ID to access a whole host of things. And we can talk about exactly how you pay for that, how it lasts, where you get access to, but at its core, it's an identifier that sits in your wallet that you can bring around. So,
it's not so much an identifier than a key, because it can be transferred, right?
but once it has that unique code attached to it,
Yep.
it is either your unique ID, or your unique access code, or it is unique identifier for that particular NFT.
Yes.
So why not use that as the new ad identifier as you go from website to website?
That is definitely something that we expect will become possible, that somebody will basically advertise based on your ownership or based on the keys that you own to identify you. One of the ways around this is obviously to say that rather than actually expose, and that's currently the state of the protocol, you expose the token that you have, you would be able to say, hey, I have a token, I'm not going to tell you which one that is, but I can prove to you that I have a token.
Yeah.
And if you do that, this way it becomes much harder to actually fingerprint users across many different sites. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right, like in that scenario, would you then add demographics and stuff where you can actually input some valuable information to the advertisers? So if you kind of
in the scenario where you basically identify users based on a token, yes, you could definitely have patterns where you do special things based on the fact that the user is a subscriber. Oh, more questions? Sorry, go ahead.
Do you plan on, like in your roadmap, do you plan on launching your own wallet for this?
Not really our own wallet, but we do have our own keychain, which could be considered the wallet is kind of a ton of things at the same time. It's a way to send transactions, and it's also a way to kind of list your balances of things. The keychain is a way to list your access keys, your NFTs. So it is, I guess, a piece of a wallet, but we don't intend to launch our own wallet altogether. Make sense?
And one other question, which is, why did you choose to build this on Ethereum?
So basically, we started building this last year. We were looking for a blockchain to make sure that it's decentralized. There's 3 criteria that we looked at. The first one was it needs to be a blockchain that is in production somewhere. And a year ago, there was actually not much of a choice.
Sure.
The second one was it needs to have kind of a large enough developer ecosystem that we don't have to build everything ourselves. So other people building wallets, for example, or other people building dev tools, and Ethereum was there. And the third one was it needs to be a place where there is a cryptocurrency that is fairly easy to acquire, and kind of the litmus test was it needs to be on Coinbase, basically. And a year ago, again, there was not much of a choice. At this point, we're not tied to the Ethereum chain in any way outside of the fact that we deploy there. We do believe that it's, for now at least, a good enough solution for us. But yeah, there's definitely room at some point to say we can build this on something else, if that makes sense. So basically, do it yourself time. If you go back to the blog and you go back on the page 2, you'll see that there's a link to the Scout dashboard, and you can also use the QR code here. You'll see that if you have purchased a key to the blog, you can actually access that dashboard as well. And it's going to be reusing the key on different contexts. Make sense? So I'm going to invite you to do that, but maybe I'll move on and then you can do that later as well. One thing that I mentioned earlier, which I think is really interesting that we need to discuss a bit more, is the idea that the keys themselves are tradable. So once I've purchased my membership to something, right now, if I purchase a New York Times membership, to cancel it, I have to call them. And I have to hope that they'll answer the phone and allow me to cancel that subscription. It's really, really hard. One thing that we strongly believe is that the membership itself should be something that is tradable. If I'm a member to something, I should be able to decide I'm not going to be a member much longer, and I'm going to transfer that to somebody else. Of course, the creator should have a voice in terms of like how things can be transferred, but the default should be that I can transfer things. NFTs, access keys, or like any other crypto asset, can be transferred. So I can take my key and I can transfer it to somebody else. I would definitely invite the one that actually purchased keys to our blog to transfer to your neighbors. I think it's a pretty fun experience to see that now that neighbor has access, but they don't have access anymore. One of the idea around this is that creators themselves might be selling on the primary market, so selling long-term subscriptions, so access to their content for say 6 months, a year. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of people that say, hey, I actually don't need that 6 months access. I'm just going to purchase from somebody else a week, an hour, 7 days worth of access to their specific thing. Does that make sense? Because it's really important to reconcile the tension between creators that want to have kind of long-term recurring revenue, kind of the visibility of saying, hey, I'm actually charging for 6 months, I'm being paid now upfront for my work in the next 6 months or the next year. And at the same time, allow consumers to easily know that if they made a mistake, they can actually move back to a place where they actually are not exposed anymore. So they say, hey, I paid this $100, I'm going to sell it now 95. It's fine. I've lost my $5, but I haven't lost $100, which is the case now with most crypto applications. Oh, go ahead.
So just to clarify one thing you just said, the idea of transferring it for a finite period of time, you're saying the remaining life of that contract, or 1 week and then it goes back to the original holder?
So what we want to do is basically allow, so right now it's you transfer the whole thing, but one thing we're going to implement very soon is the ability to transfer partially. So I've got like a month worth of access, I'm going to send you 2 days, I'm going to send him 3 days, I'm going to send her 5 days, and so in the end I've got like 25 or 10 days less on my subscription.
But like the problem with that is that you can gamify the process then.
Yes.
Right? It takes me 3 minutes to read an article, I'll buy it, and it gets used 100 times.
Exactly. And that's actually the last point, which is important. When we discuss with this idea with publishers, like, hey, wait, are we telling me that basically now I'm going to sell one key and then people are going to go back and forth between thousands of people? And we say, well, no, there's actually a way around this, which is to take fees on that secondary market transfer. It's like this time, rather than say, hey, these transfers happen for free, maybe every time somebody transfers the key, they pay 5 cents to the creator. So the creator now monetizes that secondary market in a way that they actually don't have to explicitly sell stuff on the secondary market. But if people transfer back and forth, at some point they'll recover their costs in the situation where they might have sold the equivalent of 2 subscriptions rather than 1. And so basically it's the whole idea of reducing the risk for creators, so consumers, while actually guaranteeing in some way long-term revenue to creators as well. Make sense? Any question about this? Ooh, okay.
So how do you plan on, like just from a biz dev sales perspective, how do you plan on convincing
New York Times.
Yeah, the New York Times to allow you to accept DAI, which no one's going to want to actually use?
So DAI is kind of a very small thing in the range of things that they have to accept. The big one is obviously using a different subscription mechanism. And when I spoke with them, it actually came from them. They told me, well, we have about 100 monthly unique on our website. 100 million monthly unique, sorry. Out of these, about 3 million subscribe. So our conversion rate is 3%. If you think about this, it's actually a very, very small number. So they're very well aware that their current system, even though it's actually now making more money than ads, is actually very bad at converting users. And so the approach of Unlock is telling them, hey, you keep your 3 million subscribers, you keep your existing paywall. However, if a user shows up and proves to you that they have a key that is required through other means, and we can discuss this, if they have a valid key, then you should give them access. And so basically, my pitch to them is like, you know you have a very bad conversion rate, and New York Times is actually the best in the room. You have a very bad conversion rate. However, if I can bring you incremental revenue by a system that, yes, is a bit different from what you're used to, why would you refuse it? Basically? There's no cannibalizing here. No matter what, the user is going to pay the same thing. It's just that this time, rather than paying with their cards, they're going to purchase the key through an NFT, basically, through crypto, and you should give them access to that. Does that make sense?
Sure. But is it the same pricing mechanism or different pricing mechanisms, or how you?
They completely control this. So we didn't go through this, but basically when a creator decides of creates their lock, they decide of a bunch of factors. They decide obviously of the price. And I said earlier, the price is both the amount and the currency. So you can say it's going to be in ETH, it's going to be in DAI, it's going to be whatever currency they want to do. They also decided the duration of the key. So an access key can be a month, a year, 5 minutes. I don't think that's a good idea, even though I did that on my blog, but they can do different things. And so they can definitely mimic what they currently have on their payroll, which is like roughly, right now it's like $12 something is the average monthly spend for a month. They could also do something where it's actually more expensive than crypto. That's up to them, and they can definitely mimic both mechanisms. What's important is that if somebody can prove that they paid to access the content, they should give them access to the content.
Right, but I mean, part of the problem is kind of finding the sweet spot for the process, right? Like, and you seem to be maybe more flexible or can provide some flexibility or information into solving that equation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I do think that since it's flexible, they can then do different things. The important aspect is like they shouldn't, or we shouldn't pitch this as a way to them that would trigger cannibalization. You say, hey, no, you keep your existing payroll. Just if I've got access to this, if I paid you to get access to this using whatever mechanism you decide, then you should give me access to the content. Makes sense? Good. So I mentioned earlier, non-fungible tokens, they sit in your keychain. You can actually use them. They sit in your wallet if your wallet supports this. But they're also available on a ton of stores. And OpenSea, which you've already heard of, which is a non-fungible crypto store, actually has access keys as well. And so you can definitely, at some point, I mean, you can already purchase a subscription to my blog from OpenSea because somebody put theirs for sale on OpenSea. You can imagine a world that at some point, at the end of Game of Thrones, I would go on OpenSea and then put my HBO subscription in. It's like, I don't want it anymore. I'm not interested in the rest of the subscription at this point. And so these crypto assets could be sold anywhere. Could be sold by the primary creator of them, the creator in that sense, or even by people that are using them. What's interesting is like now, as a user, when I show up on the site, I can purchase straight from the creator, or I could purchase from the secondary market, knowing that in the end, the creator is the one that gets paid for the content. Any questions about this? The whole idea, and I think this is key, is to remember that conversion rate, like 3% conversion rate. The reason why it's so low, I do think it's not because people don't want to pay for content. It's because it's actually very difficult to pay for content. If you try to do on your phone to subscribe to any of these sites, just typing your email and a password that's more than 5 characters long is a pain. And so I do think that the conversion rates are very low because it's actually a very frictionful experience to subscribe to all of these things and pay for things. There's a reason why the App Store model that will basically unlock kind of in-app purchases through the App Store that already has your identity and your credit card number works so well. It's because it's actually very smooth and easy to do. So our goal is really to reduce friction. And we think that by reducing friction, we can actually increase conversion rate. We can actually make it easy for people to commit or to purchase the things that they're interested in. And once they actually purchase the thing that they're interested in, I do think that prices can go down as well. One of the reasons why New York Times is $12 or 10 on at least on the facial value, it's because they need this to make it work for them, given that they have a 3% conversion rate. If they had a maybe 6, 15, 12, 20, or 30% conversion rate, the prices could go down because they wouldn't need basically to charge as much given that low conversion rate.
Like, have you discussed the idea of increased ad revenues if they know who the token holders are?
That is definitely something that is something that they could do. At the same time, they're very explicit about moving away from ad revenues altogether. So, and I do think that's actually a fairly good model for them to say, hey, rather than exploit your attention and your data, we'll ask you to pay for the stuff that you consume. Right. So that flywheel is definitely what, I mean, the whole point of Unlock is like really reducing conversion, reducing friction, increasing conversion, and then reducing prices, which in turn will obviously increase conversions as well. And so that's, the whole point of Unlock is to trigger that flywheel. And I want to finish with one question. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention this already. That's actually a very interesting aspect of the Unlock ecosystem. Once we build Unlock, once you build a lock, we're trying to think of, again, we built this for the web. And one thing that is very important for us is the idea of building something that leverages the web's core principle. And one of the things that is unique to the web is the ability to make links. My site makes a link to your site, makes a link to somebody else's site. If you think about this, all of these links are actually referrals. They're ways for me to vote for a site that actually in turn votes for something else, and that's leveraged by Google. Google actually sorts websites based on the number of votes, number of links that they have. We do want to build a similar mechanism inside of Unlock, because we do think that one of the challenges when you start to lock access or content is obviously that less people can access the content, and so that kind of reduces distribution in a sense. And so by building a referral program inside of the protocol, we enable and we allow people to share, we incentivize people to share the content that they've unlocked so that they are getting rewards when other people in turn unlock the same content. So if I unlock I unlock CoinFund's blog, and I think it's actually very interesting content, and I share this with Sasha. If Sasha decides to unlock the CoinFund blog as well, I should get a reward. Not necessarily from CoinFund, even though I'm sure they have stuff to reward me with, but a reward from the network. And that reward is points that allow me to get discounts later on that same network as well. If you think about credit card in the US, you go down the store to Maman, the coffee shop, and you pay with your Chase card, you don't get Maman points, you get Chase points. And these points allow you to get a cheaper airline ticket at some point when you want to fly to Florida, because it's cold in New York. We're building something very similar here, where basically we incentivize people not so much to spend, but to share the best content that they've unlocked with the most relevant person, because they need to convert, right? So I'm going to share the German restaurants with Sasha, because I know he's German and loves German food, and so I'm going to share that list of top restaurants with him. He's going to unlock this, and I'm going to get points. The creator is happy because obviously they got business from Sasha. I'm happy because I got a reward, and Sasha is happy because he's going to get some bratwurst. He's pretty happy about that. In that world, basically, the points that I get allow me to unlock the list of top French restaurants in Soho, because that's actually what I'm into. And so in a very web nature way, we want to build a system for the best content to be exposed or to be distributed to the people that care most about that content. Does that make sense? Cool. Any questions? All right, and so basically we'll wrap this up. What kind of content or application did you wish was monetized online, maybe using Unlock? What do you want to pay for? So that it stays out there, so that it actually doesn't disappear like a lot of stuff that we assume it stay forever and then has to go away because nobody pays for this. Nobody wants to pay for anything.
Well, how are you also going to prevent against people bypassing the paywall, like going on incognito?
So there's a ton of technical things. None of them are actually relevant to Unlock, right? Paywalls today, you can bypass them or you could bypass them with. Unlock doesn't change this, because we're not about like making it more secure. Okay. We're about making it more easier for people. We're all about, rather than looking at fraud, because we don't think fraud is actually a problem at this point.
So it's more like individuals than it is the larger conglomerates, like New York Times, because they want to make sure you don't bypass the paywall.
They actually don't care that much. I mean, so it's interesting. I went there and we discussed a lot about this, basically. They don't consider an account to be shared unless more than 2 people access it concurrently. So if 2 people already share the access, they don't think it's shared. They think it's normal. And basically at this point, they have 30% of their accounts that are shared or used by more than 2 people. So if they cared really about fraud, they would definitely go after these techniques. What they care about at this point is conversion. They know that fraud is actually not that big of a deal. What they know is like the 3% conversion rate is very, very low. Once they get like 20, 50, maybe more percent of conversion, that's when they look at fraud and say, all right, now we have a problem there. And if you think about the web, it's this. Like, it's not so much that people don't want to pay for content, it's people can't pay for content. It's actually very difficult to do so.
All right, so question. So I think people evolving the pay for content will take some time, right? And I think the transference from ad to pay, and this is where the whole idea of identity kind of works. So if you look at that, they're using identity to help augment advertising sales and then circulating inside.
They're not looking at identity, they're looking at attention. That stands for basic attention token. And so what they're leveraging is like how much time you spend on the site, which is another way to do ads. Basically, say, hey, how much this site is able to steal from your valuable time, and that's how much they're going to be paid.
Right. I mean, I assume identity's involved as well, but regardless, the point is that ads won't go away. And I think, to me, a hurdle is going, like, so I'm willing to pay for some things, but very few. Whereas I also know that I'm not getting paid for my identity. So like seeing that, it's like, you know, a big movement is getting identity and how Facebook's user identity. So kind of integrating those two processes would help kind of facilitate or smooth the transition to a fair process.
Yeah, so let's put that aside for 1 second. How much do you think people, I mean, the web makes from you on a monthly basis through ads?
My estimate was really low. I was like $3 or $4. I've heard much higher numbers.
On average, basically, in the US, the average person, if you exclude Facebook and Google, makes less than $10 a month in ads. So basically, the question is like, would you pay $10 to not ever see an ad on the web anymore for the rest of the month? I think when we say, oh, I would not pay for anything, like $10 is the price of 2 frappuccinos, right? It's actually ads is actually a very poor way to capture revenue and capture value. So it's not so much that we need a better way to kind of allow ads, like make ad work. Like ads actually a very bad system altogether. It doesn't make a lot of money, steals a lot of attention, and we can talk about the attention. Incentivizes creators to actually get more and more data from people that actually they don't need and expose that data and leak that data. So all in all, that's actually a pretty bad system, not something that I think is worth saving.
You know, and I agree. Just the question is that cold turkey is hard. Whereas if you kind of lead me through the process and say you subsidize this process and eventually you realize that clean web page is a beautiful thing, and then, you know, so I just think that, you know, my concern is just going from ads to a world of nothing and paying for it is a hard barrier, right? And I think that's why they have
I think that movement has already started. Like, I agree that it's a tough one, but I mean, that ship has sailed like 2 years ago already. Like, it's already a very well engaged process. Like, again, all of the publishers out there move toward paywalls. Like, and there's no secret why they do this, right?
I know the conversion rate is 3%, right? So
exactly.
It's moving, but it's not moving. Yeah, I think there's an interim approach to get it to 10, 12, 14, 15.
I agree, and that approach to me is reducing friction, making it easier for people to pay. Like, I mean, I can't insist on as much as enough on this. Like, people inherently that nobody wants to not pay for nothing. People do want to pay for things. It's just too much work, and basically because it's too much work, we're in a system where it's actually these creators, these publishers have to charge more than what they wished because they know that their conversion rates are going to be low. And so by making it easier, by like lubricating in some way that loop, we can actually make it easier and easier for people to pay for, reducing friction, increasing conversion rate, and reducing prices, which in turn increases conversion rate, etc., etc.
Yeah, no, and we have a little different.
And so let's talk about attention, because I think that's something that you mentioned. I do think that one of the key problems of ads, despite the fact that they're kind of leaking data all over, is actually the challenge around attention. If you think about all of the woes of the web at this point, like fake news, clickbait, all of these things, the reason they exist is because creators get paid on how much attention they can steal away from you. And what actually makes you spend more time on a platform is outrage, is dumb slideshows that you have to keep 15 seconds delayed, the fake news that you're like, oh, I can't believe this is true. And some random people will actually share this because this is so big that this must be true. That whole ecosystem of bad data exists because the incentive for all of creators out there is to create and steal more attention. And so if we stop rewarding attention, basically, and say, hey, I'm going to reward consumers, or sorry, creators for the value that they create for consumers rather than from the time they steal from consumers, we're going to be in a much healthier model.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I totally agree.
And so that's why bad for me is very ill-informed, because it still incentivizes creators to actually have me spend more time on their websites.
Yeah, I think they're just, you know, they're harnessing a current regime that should change.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to fix the system when I say, that system is actually pretty not worth fixing. Yeah, go ahead.
Token is transferred in the secondary market. So how can the content producer get profit from these transactions? Because the number of the reader may be increased rather.
Sure. So the access key is actually belongs to the lock. It's inside of the smart contract that the creator deployed. And so basically when they deploy the smart contract, they can decide of the term that allow people to transfer. The transfer function, if you wish, happens on the smart contract. And the creator could prevent it from happening unless the consumer who wants to transfer the keys actually paid a fee to transfer their keys. One of the things that so right now the approach that we took is to charge a fixed fee for this, which works. But if you remember what I said earlier about like splitting in duration, I purchase a month of access and I'm giving 1 day to somebody. Now this time, rather than actually setting a fixed fee, actually say how much time is lost every time I transfer the key. So basically I say, hey, every time somebody transfers the key, the same amount of time is lost on the lock. So basically if I got 30 days and I transfer a key to you, you get a 1 day key, a 1 day access key. Now instead of having 29 days, I only have 28 because 1 day has been lost. And that's actually value that goes back to the creator because that means that I'm going to have to purchase another key earlier in the process. Go ahead.
Just one more technical question on that. Given that the transfer rules are defined by the contract,
yep.
Is there a limit to how complex those rules can get? As a creator, could I define a lock that you have to pay the very light for, that you have to pay a fee to transfer,
yep.
that can only be transferred to a recipient that can itself prove a certain number of conditions?
So no, the rules to transfer, the rules that the creator can set when they transfer is like how much, the amount of fee that somebody has to pay to allow for the transfer, and that's it. So
Nothing more than that.
Nothing more than that. So basically, if somebody has paid the fee, they can transfer to anyone.
So there's no restriction on who the recipient can be?
No. And even if you wanted to put some, you know that basically anyone can create a wallet, basically, from nowhere, which means that these rules would not be efficient in any way, right?
Well, it depends on how many you staked, right? Do I need to be a holder of certain other tokens that prove something before I can be a recipient of this particular token?
But I could then like have the tokens that you would require people to own be transferred from one another, and then the transfer would happen just for the sake of this.
Depending on what those tokens are, but yeah, I think it's.
Go ahead.
They cap how many subscriptions or whatever that they offer and incentivize transfer.
Yes, exactly. So when they create their lock, I said earlier, they decide the price, the duration. One of the criteria as well that they can decide is the amount of keys that they want to exist in the wallet. So say unlimited is probably going to make sense for stuff like New York Times, but they could also say, hey, we're going to have a special short duration lock that's going to be only available for 100 people, and that's going to be cheaper or more expensive depending on how easy it is. Yes, that's one of the criteria that they can set. You can also set the rules to cancel a key. Something that I didn't mention is like, you can transfer keys, but you can also, as a user, cancel your key. And it's literally burning the key. So you send back the key to the lock, and you get a refund. And the rules of that refund are actually decided by the smart contract as well. So there's kind of a free trial period. So you say, hey, if I'm canceling my key in the first, I don't know, 10,000 blocks, basically, after it's been minted, I get a full refund. That's something that a creator can decide. Or I can say, hey, as a creator, basically, I'm going to take a penalty of 20% of the key price, which is going to be lost no matter what by the person who cancels the key.
All right, so I see the word protocol. Where are you a company? Where are your protocol? And how do you foresee the ecosystem evolving?
We're all of this. So basically, it's a protocol in the sense that it's already on-chain, on the Ethereum chain. You can use it, and I cannot prevent you from using it. It's something that is completely kind of, in that regard, protocol-like. I cannot prevent you to do this. At the same time, Unlock is a company, and the credit card processing that we do requires us to be a company to actually provide that service. And so we're a company that builds a protocol and that hopes to monetize using different systems that we built in the context of the protocol. One of the analogies that I make all the time, if you think about email, right? Email is an open protocol. At the same time, there's been a large number of companies that actually can build very profitable business on top of the protocol, specifically by building the convenience layer, the easier way for people to access that protocol. And that's exactly what we're trying to achieve.
And how much of your money is spent on the protocol versus the company? How do you balance that?
At this point, we're building the protocol, so basically pretty much everything. We're starting to build the monetization through the credit card, and that's definitely one of the areas we're exploring.
And then how do you decide when to bifurcate those efforts?
So one thing that we believe is that the protocol currently is, we deploy the smart contract, and so we own the smart contract. I'm not going to go into how this works, but we do think that at some point we will decentralize how that protocol is being operated through basically a decentralized governance system that allow any member, any person using the protocol to vote on who is the maintainer of the protocol. And so at some point, when we feel like the protocol is mature enough, will be the time where we say, hey, all right, we're one of the people preparing
Governing
this.
body, you kind of spit out.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we take one last question? Cool. Well, thank you so much
Thank you
to
very much.
Julien.